everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. So just some housekeeping first. If you have questions, we'll be using the Q&A function to put those in. We accidentally just said in the chat to put it there. That is incorrect. We're going to use the Q&A function. We do not answer questions that are put in the chat. Use the chat function, though, for any technical issues, like if we're going in and out sound-wise, can't see our screen, that kind of stuff. And this webinar is being recorded, and it will be distributed to all registered people. So you'll get a chance to see this again and share it with whoever. So we're going to get off we're going to start with a poll to see who's on the call with us. So I'm going to launch this poll here and just answer all that apply for the kind of organization that you represent. Just a few more seconds here. Thanks for everyone who's responded so far. We got 85% so far, so good job. Since people are still joining, we are going to give a few more seconds here. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close this poll. Looks like it's leveled off, and take a look. Looks like most of you are with us from post-secondary education. A good portion of you from different size companies and some workforce development. So thank you very much, and we'll keep on going.
Hello, everyone. This is Montez King, the Executive Director of NIMS. I am so excited to have this webinar with you today. There's a lot of excitement going here, and we hope that everyone's safe out there and adjusting to some of the new conditions that we're all facing. This is something that's leading into a change for NIMS. We're in our 25th year. Hopefully you can see that on the screen. We're all excited. Everyone give a cheer for our 25th year. Yeah, so a lot of people are asking, what's next for NIMS? You know, where are we headed? And so I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions, and that's part of why we're doing this webinar, is to answer some of those questions and all the things that we've been working on in the last 3 years. And now, you know, we're at the edge of our seat because we're at the point where we can implement these projects, or I would call them programs, that we've been renovating through that time. So let's move to the next slide here. All right, for our 25th year anniversary, we have a statement that we want everyone to see here. This is very important, and it will hit on all of the slides. So I'm going to read that word for word. Improving performance goes beyond establishing training programs. Training alone rarely closes the gap between current and desired performance. This rarity is due to not having a reliable method to validate training. Now, we know that there are other variables that can impact current and desired performance. Validation is a key component of that, and you'll see that reveal itself through the upcoming slides. Okay, so ultimately, what do employers care about? Yeah, they care about a lot of things, but there's one piece that has to be there for that company to be productive and apply some of those resources to the other things they care about. Ultimately, they care about performance. And so that's the vision of NIMS, is to focus on performance. Everyone sees that. Everyone probably on this line knows that we're well known for issuing industry recognized credentials. Yes, but what we're really selling is performance. Credentials are the icing on the cake for performance. Okay, so, and performance requires valid training. So that's what we're going to focus on today. So what do? We made it very simple, what we do and how we do it. This is an overview of NIMS. This isn't any type of sales pitch. It's just strictly what we do. We validate training and performance with practical experiences that reflect what employees will face on the job. You're looking at the next 25 years for NIMS. How do we do it? It's through our new SMART solutions. And that includes 3 pillars. They're interconnected pillars that hold up the next 25 years. SMART standards, performance measures, and training principles. They're all SMART. Part of what makes them SMART is, one, they're better than what we've done in the past. That's pretty obvious for us. But also, it's intelligent. It's like that automation and artificial intelligence where it's dynamic and it's customizable. Those are the main attributes of what makes it SMART. So we're going to go through these concepts to help you understand it. But for the first or the next 3 slides, they will be abstract. They're going to talk about concepts of how we do it. And the practical nature of it will be in the slides afterwards. So remember, the next 3 slides are concept slides to help you better understand what these SMART pillars are doing. So we are using a lot of bandwidth here, and these slides are animated, so if it's a little choppy on your end, we apologize for that. That's just through the bandwidth. So maybe I can meet you face to face one day and we can go through the slides and you can see the smooth transition in the animation. All right, so the first pillar is SMART standards. Okay, so we're going to conceptually walk you through SMART standards and why we converted our standards into SMART standards. We first start by understanding the complexity gap. So when we look at the complexity gap, we have to consider some of the duties of a particular occupation a generation ago. So let's just go back 25 years when NIMS first started, when we were founded. And so you could think about machining, that was our core at the time. And there were a certain amount of duties that you were responsible for. And anyone in that occupation, for any type of apprenticeship training or journey person level training, you were expected to master the entire occupation, if not the entire occupation, 75% of that occupation. But as time goes on and technology emerges, there are new duties that are introduced. So just go a few years out, more duties. Go more years out, you have more duties. And go out some more, and you have additional duties. So that level of complexity exists today. They're just constant emerging technologies of bringing duties. So there's your level of complexity. Now, can you actually master the entire occupation throughout, let's say, a 4 or 5 year track of training? It's virtually impossible when you talk about the entirety of the occupation. As a matter of fact, it's virtually impossible to do it throughout your career, because by the time you get to that last duty, something in the past has changed and you have to go back to that. So there's a level of complexity. Now, the next level is when you have the existing duties. Now, I want you to watch the screen. It might be a little choppy, but there's 2 levels of the complexity gap. You should have noticed those duties expanded. They got bigger. So the actual duty didn't change, but it expanded in its own complexity. So those are 2 levels, the addition of duties and the expansion of complexity within duties. Now, this isn't unfamiliar to companies. Companies have been dealing with this for years, right? They're adjusting. They have to adjust for performance. So how are companies combating the complexity gap? They have to close it, for one, and how do they do it? They do it through roles. So the idea with smart standards is they're no longer occupational based, they're role based. And it's the collection of standards are duties that can be, let's look and see how we're doing. We're sliding over duties and we're creating roles within those duties, and we're gift wrapping it. We're wrapping it in a bow, and we're calling it industry recognized roles, because that's how industry has dealt with the complexity gap. They said, okay, we have to train for CNC operators, CNC programmers, CNC specialists in certain areas, and even if they're in other areas, inspection, they're all different roles. We're all in the same occupation. I'm a machinist, other people are machinists, but we're all playing different roles within our occupation. So you can, with smart standards, it has a lot of benefits, because not only can we identify industry recognized roles, but with the duties, we can pull over additional duties in our organizations and customize our roles. So now roles can be customized with additional duties, although you're being recognized for that industry recognized role. Now, here's another benefit of it. You can say, you know what? I don't want to go with the industry recognized role. Our roles are so unique, it's just for us. Well, you can take the gift wrapping out and pull over a few duties, and it does not have to align to any industry role. They can be fully customized into unique roles for your company. Now, here's another benefit of it. This is the most powerful piece. Regardless of how roles are customized, you're always standardized, because the standardization is at the duty level. It is not at the occupation level. The roles are organized by duties, but all of the standardization and the provisions are at the duty level. So that's the beauty of smart standards. Okay, so that's the concept of how it works. We'll do a deeper dive later. Build your roles with smart standards. Okay, now we have to get into smart performance measures, because our duties are industry recognized and generally accepted across the industry. But one thing that's not generally accepted is your expression of performance. So in one organization, we can agree to the responsibilities or the duties of this role, but what they actually do on the job, the specs change from one place to the next. So we can identify with the duties. These are industry recognized. So let's bring out those duties again, okay? So it doesn't matter the number, just say you're organizing your duties, you're building your roles. Now those duties are then transformed into performance. So when we say performance, it doesn't have to be performance that everyone agrees to, because one company does aerospace work, another one does tool and die, another one does mold making. They all do different things. So performance means something a little different, even though the responsibilities or the duties are the same. So we can go to a specific company and have customized performance just for one company, such as Raytheon, which we have done, have some specialized or customized performance measures for them. Even companies like K&B Industries, we've worked with them to create specialized performance measure or customized. And when we talk about Parker Hannifin, that's another organization that we've been in talks with that may possibly create their own customized performance measures. They're all agreeing to the standards, but they have different performance. So what's your expression of performance? That's what's next for us. We want to work with you to create help you to define or select your expressions that represent your community. All right, so now we're moving to smart training principles. This is the last pillar. They're all interconnected. This is the last. Okay, so before I can tell you about smart training principles, I can tell you a little bit about not so smart training principles. When we look at a one-size-fit-all, not so smart, because it can be smart for one organization or one industry. Let's bring in machining. It could be smart for machining, but it might not necessarily be smart for automation. And it might not necessarily be smart for robotics. Anytime you have a one-size-fits-all model, you're going to have someone happy and someone else conforming, because it's one size fits all. So there's flexibility, but the flexibility is only inside the rigid box. You can see that grid down there, and it has solid lines because it doesn't grow. Your flexibility is only within that grid. Now, smart training principles takes on a totally different shape, and it's three-dimensional because it adapts to whatever training is applied to it. So let's take a look here. Let's look at machining. We can throw that in there and it says, okay, fine. Our smart training principles works for machining. But what else is out there? Let's bring in that automation. What did you see happen here? It expanded. You're not working in the same size. It had the ability to expand. So it still accepts machining, and it expanded to automation. So let's take a look again. Let's add robotics in. Again, it expanded. I don't know if the animation is coming through on your end, but on my end, it looks really smooth here. And so it just adjusted. And what about those lurking industries that are out there? I mean, they're on the horizon. They're growing. They might not be as big and mature as what we have on the screen, but they're out there and they're growing. So how does smart training principles handle that? Look at that. It just expanded even more. So it's waiting for you. It's saying, come on, I'm ready. Let's do this. So now we've got that Industry 4.0 that we're focusing on. You'll see that as we go through the slide. So now you can see how smart standards work. But now that's expanding to emerging technologies. But it has another benefit. You can bring it back down and customize your training. So it can be just like that smartphone. You go into the settings and you adjust the settings on a smartphone. This is my phone. You can adjust your training for what works for you. So it can expand and it can contract as well. Whatever you need is there for you. Okay, so those are the three pillars, and I gave you an explanation, or I gave you the concepts of how they work individually. Now, I want to see if I can give you a concept of how they work together. Okay, so how they work together is you need a heartbeat. You need that universal and you need that communication, that clarity among your community. So you've got to have your heartbeat. Your heartbeat are your expressions. That's your expression of performance. So you might, now it's beating on our end. We can see that heartbeat. Now, I don't know if it's beating on your end, but you might see that pulse. And what is it the heartbeat of? It's the heartbeat of your community. Your community can be as small as an organization. It can be as big as multiple organizations. The organization of the community can be a mixture of workforce development, company organizations, companies, secondary and post-secondary schools. They're all working together in their community, and they have their own expressions of performance. And they're all aligning, or they're all using smart training principles to govern the intensity and quality of their training to meet their performance needs. And then they're all being governed by smart standards. So the standards are what we can agree on because of the performance, but the expressions are personal to the community, and we're all using smart training to adjust it just for you. Okay, so remember, it should be pulsing for you. Expressions are the heartbeat of your community. It's what makes you, you. And also smart training does the same thing. Okay, so now, those were the fun slides. Now it's not so fun, but I'll try to do what I can to make it a little fun. Let me take a drink of water here, and then we'll go into the deep dive. Or actually, it's like dipping your toe in it, because there's a lot more to it. So let's dip our toe in it. Okay, so let's look at our SMART standards framework. SMART standards, the duties are one-pagers. They never exceed one page. If it exceeds more than one page, it's too big. We want it very easy to interpret. Our one-pagers consist of 5 components. It's the responsibility in 100 words or less, the resources available to the performer to perform the duty, and performance is broken down into two categories, practical and critical thinking. So now the critical thinking is tied to performance rather than having a general statement required critical thinking. So your practical is learned behavior, critical thinking is judgment or decisions. Then we have compliance. Is it a full compliance for the standards, or are we saying a partial demand? Meaning you have the option of saying, for us, we don't do this part, or for others, we do. So we tell you if it's a full or partial compliance, and your evaluation method tells you how to evaluate. So these are, remember, SMART standards are a compilation of duties. All duties are one-pagers, and they have these 5 components, along with this hierarchy to tell you where it came from. Duties are individual standards. So it's not a thick book of standards. Every one-pager is a standard. Duties state minimum performance, not specifications. It does not say must be able to drill a hole within plus or minus, et cetera, on size and within location. That is expressed in your performance. This is telling you what you're required to do. Duties are used to select and design performance measures. So this is where you get your specifications and performance measures. So you're using the duties to design, select, or design your performance measures. Duties are organized into roles. So that's how we sort them to make them useful and practical in the workplace. You can also use them all the way down to the duty level if you have more micro credentialing. Credentials are aligned to industry roles. So all of our credentials will align to the roles. Roles are not identified by complexity level. So there isn't a CNC operator level 1 or ITM technician level 1. Why? Complexity is expressed through PMs that is relevant to the community. Knowledge requirements are listed by roles. And standards are dynamically updated. What that means is, instead of saying, hey, our policy is we update our standards every 5 years. Do you know how much technology emerges between now and 5 years? A lot. So we are not updating our standards once every so often. They are dynamically updated as technology emerges. Okay, so let's go through the benefits of SMART standards. One is very easy to interpret, and we actually have published some standards. We'll get to that a little later, and we're eager for you to visit our website and check out these standards. Much better than what we've done in the past, and they're easy to interpret. It allows for a shift towards true competency-based training. This is very powerful because now the standards have utility in the classroom. It is not just to select and design your PMs, but you can now use it in your classrooms for your training programs on the job and in your post and secondary and post-secondary. It has the utility of becoming that modular training that you need. Easy customization while maintaining standardization. The standards can be assorted in many different ways, giving you the customization. However, regardless of how you sort, you're all standardized. Ideal for adding or revising duties to keep pace with emerging technologies because there's no spooky action at a distance with our standards. And that's my little phrase, but what that means is each duty is independent. Even if they have to be unique, identical, or fraternal to other roles, they stand alone. So there's no connection between them so that we can update roles independent of revising the entire standards. Very powerful. Organizes training into short-term tracks that are stackable into masterful careers. So for those who may say, hey, we still want to train for that journey person 4 or 5 year track, doesn't mean you have to change that, but what it means is you're training in shorter tracks and you're stacking that up into a masterful career instead of putting it all out there as one training program. or one training track to get to the 4 or 5 years. You're letting them stack it through a natural pace rather than having it all put out there at once. Okay, some of the machining roles we have. New roles that you will see on our website: CAM milling programmer, CAM turning programmer, CAM 5-axis milling programmer, CAM 5-axis milling operator, CAM 5-axis milling specialist. I'm sorry, CNC. I said CAM, but it's CNC. CNC milling operator, CNC milling specialist, CNC turning operator, CNC turning specialist, CNC operator. They all have their own definitions of what they are, and you can choose. So now, instead of looking through a thick book of standards, you can just go to the role that means something to you, and you extract what you need rather than looking at the entirety of the standards. We also are staying in pace with those who still do manual machining. So we have manual milling specialists, manual turning specialists, bench work specialists. So those classic roles are still there because we know that they are still out there in our communities. Dimensional measurement. These are new standards that we've developed. Now we have quality technician roles and quality engineer roles. Very powerful. Please go to our website and check these out. Industrial technology maintenance roles. So these are existing roles that we have, but we're converting them to maintenance operations specialists, mechanical system specialists, hydraulic systems, pneumatic systems, electrical systems, electronic control systems, process control. And these smart conversions will be completed by the end of June. That means I have like 3 to 4 days. Well, we gotta get some. We gotta rock and roll and get this one done. But yeah, we feel comfortable that we're on pace for this. Okay, so we are working on Industry 4.0 roles. Actually, we just completed those standards. Hey, let's give us Industry 4.0, heard of roles: production specialist, maintenance specialist, process specialist, and systems integration specialist. And again, by the end of June, we plan to release these. And what's really unique about our Industry 4.0 roles is, we know there are other standards out there, people, it's a buzzword right now. But there's a difference between what we're doing and what's out there. We're giving you the storyline. Industry 4.0 roles are, it's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of buzzwords. People are slapping content over it and they're calling it Industry 4.0. Yeah, they're doing that, but no one knows how it's applied. There's nothing practical, like, and you go to the workplace, how does it apply? And so what our duties, our smart standards empowers you to understand how it applies from a practical nature. And then when you go out there to the job, you can say, hey, you know what? From these NIM standards, a process specialist should be able to do this or that. Industry said so. Company said, yeah, you made a good point there. So we're giving you a storyline. It's very powerful. So we encourage you to visit our site and look at this. All right, so let's dip our toes into performance measures. Okay, so here's the framework. It consists of a performance agreement. Then we have our resources like delivery, project, and reproduction. And then we have some of these key components called data and reports. So what makes this smart? One, performance measures a performance measure is a framework for defining, validating, and benchmarking performance. So what makes it smart is you're collecting information or data and it's being reported as useful information that can be easily interpreted. And it gives you the assistance of understanding if your training is working at all stakeholder levels, whether it's the trainee, whether it's the trainer, or if it's the organization. You can see how you're performing. And I would like to show you how we do that. We do that through a very simplistic reporting structure. Our reporting structure is you, everyone else, and your goal. You is always from the perspective of you, regardless of who you are as the stakeholder. If you're looking at your reports and you are the instructor, then you're looking, or the trainer, then that's you. If you're the trainee, it's you. If you're the company, it's looking at you. Everyone else is all of your peers except you. And then the goal is where you're targeting. So your ideal pattern is that you, regardless of who you are, you, everyone else, and everyone else are meeting the goal. So here's your ideal pattern. All bars are equal. Without even looking at numbers, you can look at several patterns. Look at your possible patterns of performance. So here you see, whoever you are, you can see that you're performing below everyone else. So it's not to exploit you, but it's to help understand where your problems are and what you can do, what your strengths and weaknesses are, and what you can do to improve it. So we can look at other patterns. Here you can see you are actually meeting the goal and everyone else is below the goal. So what can you contribute to your team to help everyone, lift everyone up? We can have other patterns such as you are below everyone else and everyone else is below the goal. So this is a different scenario, but again, it gives us useful information to help us make decisions about our training program and help us to improve. And then here's a situation where you are above everyone else, but you and everyone else are still below the goal. So with these possible patterns, we don't even have to look at numbers to determine a pattern that's happening within the organization. Very powerful tools. We have a digital tool that helps you to collect information, that helps you to define how you observe information and what information is critical to for observation. And it helps, and then it also provides you all of the tools you need to convert that data into useful information, such as your patterns. Some of the benefits to customizing your PMs is you can provide choice for organizations while remaining standardized. So when we go into these companies, such as we just had Raytheon and KMD, some of the pilots that we use, they could customize their PMs, but they were all recognized for the same standards and same credentials. Allow student pipelines to build portfolios of experience relevant or to local employers. So you can work with your community and say what's important for the community, and you can define your performance measures for the community rather than taking something that's general across the entire country. Increase employers' community engagement. You know, when you talk about how do I get my employers to engage, when you talk about performance and helping them to define your performance, but not narratively defining its performance by saying, yeah, we think they should be able to do this and that. No, you can actually create the experience. You can simulate the experience so it gives you clear and transparent communication to the community. Relevant to the performance needs of each community. Now you can say, this is what our community did, and you can be proud of it. This is what we do. We're in the tool and die business. We're in the medical form. We're in this. Whatever you were doing, you can be proud of that, and you can design it, customize it for you. Access to NIMS digital benchmarking tool. When you use our customized PMs, or you customize your PMs using our framework, you can get access to the tool. Very powerful for organizations. All right, Smart Training Principles Dive. This is our last dive for this webinar. I'm trying to make it more interesting. I know that dipping the toes in it can be a little daunting. All right, so let's look at the SMART principles. There are 7. Let's go through them. You have train from the end. And this principle wraps around looking at your behaviors to see if your training is relevant to what you want them to do at the end. Stakeholder environment checks your behaviors on who you recognize as performers. In most organizations, they may look at the trainee as the primary or only performer when it comes to training. However, with the stakeholder environment, all stakeholders are performers: the trainer, the trainee, and the organization. We check your behaviors on separate trainers and evaluators. So if you want a independent assessment of your trainees, This is very powerful in helping you to understand if your trainees are meeting performance, if your training program is working, and if your trainers are delivering. So you can see it from many different perspectives when you implement this principle. Dual training environments. How many out there have implemented training for skills attainment where production has precedence? Well, in those scenarios, training is going to suffer. So if you have dual training environments, then you have a methodology for separating when production has precedence over training. You can work between the both and go in and out. So that's what that principle checks for that behavior within your training programs. We check for true competency-based. Many organizations will say, yeah, we have competency-based training because we have competency-based credentials that are attached to it. That's not competency-based training. We can check your behaviors to see if you're using true competency-based training. What about true performance validations? Are you using coursework as your primary method to determine if individuals can perform on the job? If so, we're checking that behavior to see if that actually works for you. Maybe working on actual jobs is the best way to determine. So we check your behaviors to see if you have true performance validations, and that also comes with feedback. And what about a win-win? We check your behaviors on win-win. So the win-win means the company or the organization needs to win. Without revenue, no one wins. So the organization has to win, and they win by performance, or as a primary part of performance. But we're saying, if your performance has improved and you are more profitable and you can expand your business, the second win is recognition of credentials to recognize the performance of your employees. So that's what we call the win-win. So those are our 7 training principles. So you can contact NIMS for a free self-evaluation. I will tell you up front, it is not a 10 or 15 section evaluation. It is very comprehensive, and it has probably 100 different items that we check for, but very powerful to understand your behaviors within your training programs. Ideal behaviors, the way we report is based on actual and desired. So ideal is when your actual behaviors match your desired behaviors. If that's the case, whether your intensity is high or low, you're getting what you desire. So most likely you're not going to be ideal. So possible patterns, if you're not ideal, is where your actuals are both your actual behavior is below your desires. That means you have to change what you're doing to match what you're looking for. Now it can be the opposite. It could be where your actual behaviors are actually higher than your desires. That means you dial it back a little bit because you're not getting a return on the investment for what you're doing. So you have to dial it back. Your goal is to get your actual behavior and your desires equal. Now, the height of the actual and desired is different from one organization to the next. In one shop, you might be putting boxes on the shelf. On another shop, you might be making smart parts that go out to the space shuttle. You might be making medical devices that goes in, that's something that's implants that goes in someone's body. So the intensity of training changes. So the height of the bars changes, but you want, regardless of where your height is, you want your actual and your desires to be the same. So I encourage you, please contact us, take the evaluation. It will reveal a lot about your organization, and it gives us the information we need to help you enhance your program. Poll time!
And to request that information, you can actually go ahead and respond in this poll that's coming up. This will capture your information, or we'll send it to you. rattling off here. If you didn't get a chance to answer, just email us, but otherwise we'll be contacting people who answered the poll.
Thank you, everyone, for going through that poll. Okay, so now what are the benefits to SMART training principles? It clearly defines the fundamentals of effective training. All of us, we pretty much generally say, hey, you know, we want better training, but we don't always know the fundamentals of how do we get effective training. And some will tell you, well, effective training is you got to do this, and this. You got to do all these things. And that doesn't mean you need the same intensity of training as another organization. That's all personal. And so you have to dial it in for what's needed for you. So we give you the fundamentals to understand how to dial that in. So does not decay over time. It's not like technology where it's good today and it's out tomorrow. These are universal and timeless constants. They don't change. Doesn't matter what the technology is. Doesn't matter what you're training for. Adapts to emerging technologies. So it doesn't matter what technology you slap across it, they're going to work. Customizable to the needs of an organization or community. It can expand and contract it can even go to an industry. It doesn't matter. So it's very customizable. So I would like to talk to you about our employer engagement process. This is a very simple 7-step process. You can breeze through it and we can get to work very quickly. The first step is called the self-evaluation, and many of you have selected or requested the link to take our survey. As I said before, the survey is not necessarily a benefit to NIMS, it's a benefit to you. So it will be comprehensive, but benefiting your organization. From the self-evaluation, it gives us information about you, and then we can begin role building. What are the roles that you need in your community? And so you've seen some of our roles, and our roles may be available to you, or we can help you customize your roles. It could be something that's customized completely outside of what we're doing, but we can give you the framework to help you with the framework. These are tools to help you build your roles. Then we go into expressions. Expressions, these are the performance measures. We don't start with training. We don't select the textbook. We don't select our online providers. No, we want to help you define the end. Express performance. At the end of your training, they need to be able to do this. And these are all the critical thinking features that we will include to make sure they can perform on the job. So you can see up in the corner here, you have multiple performance measures because we're creating a catalog of performance measures to help organizations select and not necessarily have to design. And as we build that catalog, there will be more selecting than designing, but early on, it will be more designing than selecting. Okay, so train the trainer. We have a lot of really powerful workshops that helps you to transition your industry experts into the education field of training, whether it's on the job or in the classroom. And it also acts as a buffing wheel. Our methodology is a buffing wheel for existing trainers, so we can help polish up the trainers that you have. Then we can also work in enhancements. We have several best practices that we can share with you on your self-evaluation. So if you are desiring a certain type of behavior, but you're not showing it in your actual activities, we can give you best practices that you can employ to help you change your behaviors. And then recognition. This is the NIMS piece. This is our piece here. This is where your credential planning comes in. If we can help you improve your performance, the recognition is to the performers, getting those industry recognized credentials embedded into your programs. And then a post-evaluation is another survey, but it's for the benefit of NIMS. This is where it switches. The first is the benefit of you. The second is more of a benefit. It benefits you as well, but we want to understand if you've been satisfied with our work and what can we do in the future so that when we get to another 25 years in NIMS, we can say, hey, we've adapted to the latest and greatest trends in manufacturing. So that's our 7-step process. Very simple. You move through it as fast as you would like to go through it. All right, so let's look at some takeaways here, and then we can sum this up into a Q&A. SMART standards are role-based, not occupational-based. You gotta remember that, it's role-based. Are dynamically updated. We don't wait for a period of time anymore. Now they're updated as we go. Are customized and standardized. So it doesn't matter how you customize SMART standards, you're always standardized. SMART training principles are universal and timeless constants. They do not change through time. Are personal training settings. This is personal to you. You can expand it or extract it. You can change your behaviors to match what you desire. Are used to stabilize training quality and intensity to maximize return on investment. I'm going to give you a tip. Never take a training program unless you know it's going to give you the return on the investment. If you're taking it one size fits all, it may not maximize your return. So with the SMART training principles, you can dial it in. SMART performance measures reveals end performance. Training from the end, never using anything other than the end to train towards. Provides clarity, transparency, and unification for the communities. So this is, everyone can look at performance when it's in a practical nature and say, yeah, I agree with that. Anything narratively written and that's it, well, just flip a coin. Just roll the dice of whether your trainees are going to meet that. And don't be fooled to say, well, our trainees are meeting it, because they could just happen to be very fast learners. They could be your gifted, the ones that are sitting so high up there that you can't tell that your training program isn't working for you. Measures the performance of all stakeholders. With SMART performance measures, we don't just look at the trainee as a performer, we look at the trainer and the organization. We're all in this together. Just like the pandemic we're in, and we're all in this together. That's the only way we're going to get out of it. Okay, so we are at the end of our slides. Thank you for your patience. Yeah, let's give us a hand that we got through our 25th launch here. So we're at the end, and let's look at the questions and see if we can answer them for you.
Okay, thanks, Montez. We do have quite a few questions, so I'm just going to read those out to you, and we will try to get to all of the questions that are being asked. So the first question is a duty somewhat analogous to a work process in a typical apprenticeship OJT standard?
So no. A duty is not a process. If you were to go through our training, we would help you with your enhancements and our best practices to define procedural training and skills attainment training. And that's where you'll get into whether it's a process. So with skills attainment is where we're showing you how to do something. And your process will be through procedural training. That's through dual environments. So anytime your trainees are trying to attain skills, we're going to show them how. Anytime they're in production has precedence, but you're still in that training mode, you're getting into your processes. That's your procedural. I hope that answered your question. Duties identify what your responsibilities are by way of performance, but to get into whether it's a process or not, that gets into your SMART training principles and your behaviors and constructing when you're teaching someone how to do something versus when you're teaching them the procedures of how to apply what you've taught.
Okay. Sticking with the duties clarifications, someone asked if you could give an example of a duty and how it's different than a competency.
Absolutely. Okay, so we can go to our website and we'll pull up a duty. Sorry for have a little patience. We're going to just pull up our website, and I think it's better to just show you.
We have a little time.
Yeah, we have some time. This is a good way for you to see our website too.
I'm excited.
All right, so here we have our SMART standards, and we'll just hit machining. Okay, so we're just it doesn't matter, pick a random role, it doesn't matter to me. Okay, so here are the duties associated with, yep, you can pick the first one, doesn't matter. All right, so just make it a little bigger so they can see. Maybe we can go view. There we go. All right, a little smaller than that. Okay, that's perfect. Okay, so the responsibility is you're responsible for securing work holding devices to machines with various configurations. Now, your resources are access to the machine, work holding devices, process plans, drawings, tool lists, and setup sheets. You're given this to align these work holding devices to the machine. So your practical experience, this is learned behavior. You have to learn how to align and locate surfaces. You have to learn when you have to be able to machine or resurface mating surfaces. You have to be able to clamp or secure devices to the machines. And here's the critical thinking piece. If device has, you have to be able to determine, one, if device has defects that interfere with alignment, and two, if mating surfaces require machining, and three, best methods to align and clamp and secure devices. So that's telling you what your performance requirements are. But the specifications might be, well, in one shop, they use 6-inch vices that you have to be able to align. Where in another shop, they're doing a 4th axis, and you've got to be able to do the vise, plus you've got to be able to align that 4th axis. Or another shop might be doing some type of 0-point mounting, and it has a totally different aspect of how you align. So that is where you get into specs. We don't specify that because that's just forever different from one shop to the next. But regardless of what type of devices you're working with, you have to be able to do these things. So I hope that explained the difference between the duties versus specifications.
Thank you, Montez. Here's another question. Excuse me. Do you have any suggestions as to how educational institutions can evolve their curricula from occupations to roles to better align with NIM SMART standards?
Absolutely. So education training programs benefit hugely from this because your time is limited. And so you should work with your community, define who your community is, bring them together and define those roles and focus on that and have a piggyback. And so when you're training, you don't necessarily have to think about all of the, well, I have to start all the way from the beginning and say, because I'm trying to train them for the full occupation. You can focus on what they need for that particular role that makes them employable and it works within the time that you have them, and then have the relationship that you need with them or with your community to pass them on. And then when they're working on the job, they can come back to your organization and pick up some of those things for a masterful and stackable career. So you're focusing on the roles that make them more employable to the community that they're within. And then when they get in that role, they get more experience, they want to stack on another role, they come back to you and they get that related training. And it's a combination between you and your organization and the employers in front of you. I hope that answered your question. You can call us and we can talk about that in more detail if I didn't.
Here's a credential specific question. What software is used for the CAM certifications?
Software is up to you. So it's not software specific. And that's the beauty of our SMART standards. It tells you performance, not specifications on what type of software you're going to use.
So are the standards updated dynamically because employers define new roles? And is this on a cloud-based platform?
Yes and yes. And so organizations like Additive is now out, and sometimes roles don't necessarily change because something new has come out, but the assortment has changed. So you'll go into an organization and they may say, well, you know what, my machinists need to do additive, they have to understand robotics, and they have to do the machining side. Again, with that assortment, you have a new role. So you didn't add anything, but the assortment changed the roles. So companies define that. And when new types of performance has been established, as technologies emerge, we can go in and add it to the duty and not impact the rest of the standards.
Okay. This is a little more process oriented, but what steps do you take to ensure confidentiality of information? I'm assuming this is both on the performance measure level and the individual level.
Okay, for confidentiality, we have two steps, two components to customizing. One is you're going to say, hey, I want to make it public. I'm going to create, it's like creating your own YouTube channel with NIMS. So you're saying we want to customize our PMs or our performance measures, and we want to make it public to let everybody know what we're doing. So that's one way. The other way is where it's private. You're not putting anything on our website, but you're using our framework to define it. So you can use our framework to publish publicly, you can publish it, or you can use our framework internally. Everything sits on your server, but you're using our framework to help you manage the process.
Thank you. What is the schedule for implementation of this new approach?
Now, call us. We want to work with you.
And this is another question that I know we've been talking about internally, and we've talked to several of our customers about it. In light of COVID-19 and the limited capacity of organizations to have students on campus to do their validation of performance, what other options can institutions explore to validate their training to attain NIMS credentials?
So one move that we made last year in 2019 is we went to a subscription. So rather than you pay as you go, you now can purchase a subscription. Another change is that we don't care about the order anymore. You can satisfy the theory now, and then later the performance, or you can do the performance first and then the theory. So if you satisfy the theory, you can, and with your subscription, you go and you take the test. And when it comes to the validation, whenever you get back, you update it, and then your credential is issued. So we want to work with you. We don't want to pigeonhole you with COVID.
Okay, thank you. Another question, have these frameworks been approved by DOL for apprenticeships?
We are deeply connected with the Department of Labor, and we have been very instrumental in being there, a resource as an architect of some of these processes. So a lot of this derived from some of the, where DOL wants to go with apprenticeships, as well as piloting with customers or industry to know what they want. So it's all about industry. Industry is defining it, and the Department of Labor, they're the ones that are adjusting their system so that we can work together.
What is the cost of smart performance measures?
Zero. No cost. We are going to start exploring ways of providing tools for your organizations to be successful. What we are encouraging is, if we're helping you improve your performance, recognize the performers through credentialing.
Thank you. Can you get certified outside of the school environment?
Now, one of the things that we're working on is a way to help some of the individuals who are seeking credentials but are not attached to an organization that has implemented or adopted NIMS. So that is something that we are currently working on, but nothing I can give you any details today. I just know it's an interest of ours and the board.
Looks like the last question here is, what about IRAP validation, industry recognized apprenticeships? Will we be doing that?
Yes, we will be doing that, and we look forward to working with everyone, whether you're in the IRAP, we're there for you. That is something that's we're looking forward to. Industry recognized is in one form or another, whether it's named the same or something different. Industry recognized is not going to go away.
I'll add to that, the Department of Labor released the application to become a standards recognition entity, SRE, and NIMS has applied for that. Those are expected to be announced within the next 30 to 90 days. So once we hopefully obtain that approval, we will make an announcement to our community and probably host another webinar to educate you on how that process works.
Very good.
So,
That's it.
no, I don't see any more questions.
Well, thank you, everyone. I am charging all on this call to be safe because I want to get out there and see you soon. So we got to be safe so we get back to our normal business. So thank you, everyone, for joining us, and all at NIMS. We want to thank you for supporting us through the last 25 years, and we want to be your partners for the next 25 years. Thank you very much.